again and turn the floor over to you. And then students, after Rhiannon is done sharing with you, I really want you all to ask questions of her because she's our expert here. And then after we're done, then
I can't hear you.
It's
It's really hard.
My audio's cutting out again. Okay. I'll turn over to Rhiannon and it should be better, I hope, for us all. Rhiannon, if we continue to have trouble with any voice things, we may do something like, I don't know what we'll do. I assume it will be well. Please send a message in chat or speak up if you're not hearing students, okay? And I'm gonna turn myself off.
Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Rhiannon. I am the Instruction and Digital Services Librarian here at Gwinnett College and recently appointed Assistant Professor of English with the School of Arts, Humanities, and English Department. And I'm here to talk about our new Gwinnett College website. Just a show of hand, your little reactions. How many of you guys have already done library research before using our library here at Gwinnett College? Reactions? Yes? No?
I haven't, not really.
Okay. All right. So I see at least one reaction. So a couple of them. All right. So what I really want to talk about too is our new library website. We had an older one and we are now moved on to a newer one. With the newer one, we will be able to search. It's called Ebsco Discoveries Layer, and we have a new layout for databases, new resources for. I kind of want to just jump right over to that right now. So I'm going to do my share screen and open that right up. Can everybody see that? Just show a thumbs up. Yes, no.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So our new library website is now embedded in any of the links here on the college homepage. So here you see it. And it's also down in the footer. It should also be available in your DC portal page as well as Blackboard. But just in case, make a note of the new URL. It's lib.gwinnettcollege.edu. And you should get to this screen here. Previously, we had an older website. Some of you guys who have done library research before have probably remember this guy. It was kind of older, made in the early 2000s. So while we're still keeping this up for some of its functions, we've primarily moved over to this particular website over here. Those of you who have done research with our old website in the past would probably remember having to jump around and do searches within, say, if you wanted to find books, movies, and music, you had to go to this one area to search our catalog across 3 different libraries. It would be the Saley campus, the Shiprock campus library, and the Crown Point libraries. And if you wanted to do any of the research in the databases, you had to move to a different area, which was here. And it wasn't really immediately obvious that it was databases. It just said resources for research. So both of those functions have been optimized. This search bar here is integrated with what we call the Ebsco discovery layer. And what that does is rather than having you jump around to different resources, going to the book catalog, going to one of the databases, what it is going to do, it's actually going to search everything that we have here at Gwinnett College. So it's going to search the Saley campus library, it's going to search the Shiprock library, it's going to search Crown Point. It's also going to look in a majority of all of our databases, including all the Ebsco databases, JSTOR, Gale, Credo, all of those resources. And in addition to that, it will search open access academic journals. So a lot of the results that you would possibly get back in, say, Google Scholar, those results will also turn up here within the Ebsco discovery layer. Also, we have moved our databases page to this little box area here. So instead of having to look at this page here, which kind of is a little bit hard to distinguish what organizational structure is here. We have some subject areas. Some of them are just kind of scattered. Everything's a little bit repetitive. Like we have Ethnic News Watch showing up in several places in different subject areas here. So we've actually made a change to that within the databases page. So as I'm jumping in here, make a note of the fact that I am here on campus. So we're going to do a quick search here. I want to actually start off with something extremely broad. So I'm going to try out with COVID-19 and see what kind of results we get here. Keep in mind, I am on campus, so a lot of this is demonstrated from campus. I'm going to go over a bit about what you will see or what you'll have to do with your off campus when you're accessing the library resources. So here, again, if you did the same search in the regular libraries, you'll probably just get a handful of results. But here in the Ebsco discovery layer, you can see just for COVID-19, you already have over 10 million results on that particular topic. We have a research starter page. We have books, items that are physically available here in the library will actually say book. If you look on the side here, it'll say which database they come from. They'll say Diné College, which means it's a library book here. And you can also see that information. Saley Library, second floor. Those that are from other databases, say this one's coming from a Business Source Complete, those are linked here in PDF full text, as you can see there. Some of these are there, you can see they're all fully linked, but 11 million is too many results. Yeah, when you're doing any kind of really focused research, it's really helpful to actually add on terms to that. So rather than just focusing on COVID-19, I want to put in a Boolean term and you can see already you get some suggested topics relating to that first subject area. So here I'm going to put mental health in students or college students. I'm going to try that one next. And after that, it's going to filter through. So 98,000, it's still a lot, it's still way too many, especially when we consider the fact that we're probably not gonna, like with Google, we're not gonna go past like the first few pages, but it's still better than over 10 million results. And as you can see here, you'll see some of these different tools here linked to HTML and PDF full text. So you'll also see this tool here called Full Text Finder. What that does is if you press that button, it'll open up this new screen where it'll actually tell you where to find the different sources where you can find that particular article. So this one says check for full text at the publisher's site. So it'll go directly to that site and you can see this open access and the PDF is readily available for you to download. So that's what that function is here. When you see any of these icons down here, like Full Text Finder or View Record and e-scholarship, make use of those buttons because those will take you or at least guide you into the direction that the full text or the full resource where they should be. One thing I want to make a note of, so you can see I'm actually able to jump around and click on any of that stuff. Those of you guys who are accessing from off campus, I'm going to show you really quick the UNM library website because they actually use this exact same tool, this Ebsco discovery system. And then just put in Navajo. And those of you guys who are off campus, if you're looking in here at Diné College, you guys have probably noticed this yellow bar, a similar yellow bar at the top of the screen. This yellow bar is basically if you're browsing from off campus, it's all you can really do is just browse off campus. So what you guys will be seeing is you'll be able to view things like as in records in lists format. But anytime you try to click on an electronic resource database, you'll probably be prompted to log in, just like here. UNM Library says to log in here. Same thing, if you guys are accessing any of these from off campus, you should log in, because if you try to make use of any of these tools, you either will be prompted to log in, but sometimes they won't work properly. So make sure that you are logged in from off campus. Your login information is your Warrior Web ID, which is basically your email username and the password for that. So once you logged in, you should be able to maneuver the site the way I'm doing it right now, back and forth, and being able to see all of the actually click on these full text links and be able to view these resources. Just like that, and make use of the tools here that you see, emailing, printing it, using the citation tools. This is especially useful if you're having to write an annotated bibliography or keep track of the resources that you've viewed. So here, you guys are using APA, so here's the APA version of that. Being able to copy and paste that into your works references page, or just to keep track of it in the form of an annotated bibliography, would be a way to just know where you got these resources, the links, the domain numbers, all of that sort of thing. So I'm just gonna jump back over here. So likewise, again, this is a great place to just get an overall snapshot of what is coming up in our library databases. Here, I'm going to filter a bit more and try, so more relevant to our area. I'm going to put in American Indians. Keep in mind some of the, think about your key terms. Sometimes you'll get certain results with one term, sometimes you'll get different results with another one. So if you're utilizing a term, Native Americans, you might get a different set of results than if you use like American Indians, versus actually specifying the tribe like Navajo, Hopi, Tohono O'odham, being able to interchange those terms there will actually affect your results. And you can see we got cut down a bit more, and we can see some of these articles relating to this particular search term here. So since this is relatively new, COVID-19, make use of the tools on the side here. You can see publication is something is coming in from 1478. I don't really know what that is, but you not want results from 1478. So make use of the sliders. A lot of the times when doing academic research, you want to get information that is recent. So COVID-19 is something that's very recent. So I don't want anything that's showing up that's not within the past year or two. And even with using those filters, we still have, quite a lot of results. But depending on the source types that you need for your paper, you can filter here by types of academic journals. So your instructor is asking you to use peer-reviewed research. Academic journals is a great way to funnel down and make sure you get stuff relating to peer-reviewed research. And likewise, you can view all the types of resources here: books, reports, magazines, news articles. Make use of those in order to kind of filter your results. We've talked about different types of databases. So this is just Ebsco Discovery Service. This is when you use this search bar at the very home page. It's also available here in this research area. This is just a way to kind of get your feet wet and get an idea of what may be out there. But sometimes, we're looking at this at the context of so many disciplines, COVID-19 and American Indians. Ebsco Discovery Service is interdisciplinary. So it's looking at these particular search terms from a interdisciplinary point of view. So it could be COVID-19 and Native Americans as it relates to arts, humanities, English. It could be some stuff that could be related to psychology. It could be stuff related to regular nursing, dentistry, that sort of thing there. So because we get so many results with that, a lot of them may or may not be relevant. This one might be because it says Psycinfo here, so that might be relevant. But you can see some of these other databases they're pulling from is from the economics database. So from the perspective of psychology research, this may not be ideal for us to use. So here the base information to kind of get an idea of where these resources are coming from. Your instructor mentioned ERIC, which is the Educational Resources Database. So this would be helpful. But again, this is overall, it may or may not be helpful for this particular class. You would have to actually look at it, look at the which database is coming from and evaluate based on that. However, if you want to go straight into the databases, the relevant databases, go here in this new box that we have. We have restructured our databases page to look like this, as opposed to this. We've pinned the top 3 databases. These are interdisciplinary, meaning just like Ebsco Discovery, they're going to give you an overall snapshot of the subject terms. But since this is a psychology class, make use of these filters here. This one says all subjects, but what we can do is when we click on psychology, it's going to bring up the databases that are most relevant to that subject area, including the best bets. So the areas where you probably get the better returns, psychology related returns on your searches would be these databases here: Psycharticles, Psycbooks, and Psycinfo. And then just some supplementary stuff, mainly those who are doing research in areas of Native American studies, Indigenous studies. Some have found Anthrosource to be helpful. JSTOR could also be helpful as well. But we also have a area. So even though this is psychology, we do have a subject area for Native American studies. So if your psychology topic moves into that area, you can use this filter as well. But for the purposes of this class and this particular session, I'm going to use the psychology databases. So their top 3 here that are mentioned are Psycharticles, Psycbooks, and Psycinfo. Psycharticles is great if you want to get instant access to a lot of the items that have full text, items that have PDFs attached to them. So here's one of those areas where, if I put in the same search term, Native American veterans, for example, we're going to get a ton of results, and we don't necessarily want all of these results because they may or may not be relevant to our particular field of study. So for example, these are coming from the history databases, government databases, and so forth. But if we do the same search terms in Psycharticles, then we get more focused results here. So 7 articles, all with full text or full PDF full text attached to them. And you can kind of get an idea of the type of topics that are covered from a psychology point of view. So this one again is having to do with telemental health, and this one's doing with has to do with suicide. So those are some of the resources that show up in Psycharticles. Now, if you're not getting a whole lot, I also recommend you jump over to Psycinfo. Psycinfo, it's great because it's a full indexing site. It'll actually expand a lot of your results. The downside is because it's an indexing site, they may or may not be full text. So let's take a look here with the same search term with Native American veterans. And you see we got more results from here. And this last one in Psycharticles, we got 7 results. Although they were all full text, there weren't that many. But if we jump over to Psycinfo, our search results were expanded to include 37 of them. And if you notice that a lot of them, you're not seeing that full text on there, but they are indexed. Some of them do have it, but you can, as you can see, here intermittently, there's not all of them have full text. So what I would recommend at this stage in your research, as this level of researchers, if you need help or assistance with accessing these articles as they're appearing here, keep track of them. I was mentioning utilizing these tools here. This is one of them where I would recommend doing the cite function and copying and pasting this citation. Make sure it has the DOI or the DOI number. A DOI number is the digital object identifier. That helps us know it's a unique number that pinpoints exactly where that article is, all across electronic database, all across the internet, basically. So if you need assistance accessing any of these articles in this database, send us an email. If you don't have immediate access, send us an email with this information here, the citation information with the DOI number. That way we can reach out to some of our partners. The Net College actually has an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with NAU. And we also have a group consortium, the Tribal College Librarians group, that we often communicate with each other and share resources. So do not despair if you do not get immediate access to some of these results. You can ask for them by sending us an email, excuse me, with that citation information. However, make sure you plan accordingly with that, because when we send out those requests, it takes time for other people to view them and respond to them. So be sure to plan accordingly with that. So that's, again, jumping back to psych articles and Psycinfo. The other thing we have too is Psycbooks. So if you're looking at a broad topic and just want to get some basic info on a particular, maybe a one or two search keyword item, so Psycbooks is a really great place to view that. These are full ebooks and they pinpoint based on chapters. So for example, I'm going to look at post-traumatic stress disorder. Let's try that. And what it does, it searches numerous books here, ebooks, and it pinpoints the chapters, and those chapters from those books, they tell you where they're coming from. So example, cognitive processing. This is from this particular book here. They do link to the full chapter of that book. If you wanted to, oops, another one. If you wanted to view the book in its entirety, you can click here and view that book. So I really recommend these ebooks, the Psycbooks, for when you're trying to view information about a broad topic, as you might see it in, say, the DSM or in a particular chapter in a textbook. And yeah, that's one area that I would recommend that you would. So these are all of our best bets for psychology in the psychology databases. So before I move on, I want to open it up for any questions at this point in time. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Not for me, no.
Okay.
Rhiannon, thank you so much. It's so interesting. I had been writing some things down as questions and you answered every single one of them. So I also don't have any questions.
All right, great. So no, not great. I highly encourage questions. I just, sometimes I can go a little bit too long, and then some people are kind of like, oh, can you go way back to that? So, before I move forward, I definitely want to make sure that everyone is caught up before I move forward. So, all right.
I have a question.
Yes.
So for students that are off campus, are they able to check out a book that you guys might have there at the library?
Absolutely. So if you are off
And-
camp, oh, go ahead.
And do you guys send that out, or how do they go about that?
We don't send books to individuals, but we can send them to the center. So, you know, our main libraries are at here in St. Lee and Shiprock and Crown Point. If your closest center is, say, Window Rock or Chinle or Tuba City, you can request books to be sent to those centers. And those would also be the point where you would drop off the books as well. You can basically pick up at any center and drop off at any center. Based on that question, I'm going to really quick talk about how to do that. So on the home page, there is a portal. On the right-hand side, it says library tutorials. And in library tutorials, there's a guide that says library video tutorials. This one is also located on the top navigation bar of the homepage under research. It also says video tutorials. But once you're on that page, you have information on how to access your library account. So every single one of you has a library account in which you can log in, view books that you have checked out, see how long their due dates are. And you can also request renewals from there as well. So you don't have to bring them back into the library. We encourage people to do these online because our policy isn't to renew books over phone. So, you know, either you bring them in person or you can request a renewal online through your library account. So there's a video tutorial on how to do that. As I was saying earlier, there's off-campus access information there. So there's a video on what it looks like, how you log into these resources if you're off campus. And lastly, there's a video on there on inter-campus delivery. So view that video. It's on that page. It walks you through the steps of how to request a book and have it sent to any of the centers. And it actually tells you how to track it through your library account and the various stages on, you know, when it was accepted, when it's in transit, and when it actually shows up at the campus center. And then also lets you know, the procedures for turning them back in. And, if you have any questions or if you want to just work with a person, feel free to contact me as well. I'll be putting my email in the chat box too. So anyone needs any help guiding themselves through any of these tutorials, or just would rather have someone live on the other end do it for them, I can help with that. So again, that's library video tutorials. It's available on the home page in the right-hand box corner. There's databases, research guides, mobile printing, and then library tutorials. Likewise, on the navigation bar under research, there's video tutorials, and it should tell you how to make those book requests and have them sent to any of the campuses or centers. Any other questions? Okay. So let me just jump back over here to the databases page. All right. So one of the other databases that was mentioned that your instructor would have you guys look at is Medline. Medline is from the National Library of Medicine. We get our Medline coverage from OCLC. So when you open that up, you'll get this interface here. So like Psycinfo, the way this is laid out is like a indexing website. So same thing, it'll give you a large return on your results, but you may or may not have full access to those results. And the interface is a little, it's a little not obvious how to navigate everything. So I'm just going to really quickly, again, do the same thing. Native Americans, and then I'm going to have COVID-19. And since we're looking at this from Medline, a lot of our results are going to be relevant to medicine and quite possibly mental health. So here we have alcohol consumption during COVID. I'm not sure why that came up, but I'm just going to use that as an example. So here is an example of what that record looks like. It's not fairly obvious where the full text is, but remember previously I talked about the DOI or the DOI number. That is the unique identifier that you would use to actually access these here. So it's not really obvious where it is located, but if you see here, it says DOI. If you click on that, then it'll actually take you to the article. And here you can see it is open access. So you can actually download that PDF. So when searching Medline resources and you're not seeing anywhere on the page where it's really obvious where to download that, just go straight over to this area where it says DOI. That's the area where you would be redirected to the actual journal. This one was a lucky find because it does say open access and that it's available and you can download it straight from there. Not all of them are like that. If you run into any of these items that don't necessarily have a full text, just do the same thing that I mentioned earlier. Get that citation information in the form of the APA format. Send that over to us, and you can request your articles in that way.
I got one more question.
Yep.
So right now in our class, we're going through a topic about regression, and I almost find it similar to what we're doing right now in listing the different possibilities for our research topic. I know you told me, or you told us to put in like different key terms, such as COVID and mental health, college students, and Native American. When we're listing these in our searches, is there like a special sign that we need to put in between each key term, or?
Yes.
I'm actually just dial it in, so I can't see the screen that you're working on.
Right.
So is there like a special symbol that you put in between each key term?
Yes, you don't have to put a special key. You just type the word and, A-N-D. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you're stringing on numerous terms, you can put your first key term in, and then you put and, A-N-D, and then your next term. And if you need to keep stringing along key terms, you just keep putting and. Those databases that just have one line, you can do that. Just keep putting and. Some databases already have, like for this one we're looking at right now, Medline, that one actually has already search for, and it says keyword, and it already has like a drag down menu that says and on there. And then you can put next keyword and so on and so forth. You can, most of these databases are pretty, by default, look for those and connectors. So even if it's just one search bar, you can just keep putting and adding your search term. If you want to do an advanced search, usually then they'll already have like a keyword, and they'll have and they'll have another one. They have two more. You have and, or, and not. Okay. And is really good for expanding your search, or is if you have two terms that can be used interchangeably. So for example, if you're trying to look for terms for both Native American and American Indian, that can be used. Likewise, it's in doing historical research on, Navajo. Historically, it's also been spelled like Navajo with H-O instead of J-O. So putting or also helps, because that way it'll search for both those types of spellings. And then lastly, there is not. Okay, so not basically eliminates a certain term. So a lot of the databases, since they're subject specific, for example, the term depression can have different meanings. If you put depression in an interdisciplinary database, you will most likely get results relating to mental health, but also you might get some relating to ecology or the environment, like tropical depression, and that sort of thing. So in that sense, not depending on which one you're researching, you can put depression, not mental health, if you're actually looking for the ecology version of depression, or if you're researching in the psychology context, you can put not and then environment. That way you can kind of filter that unwanted results. But since you're moving in, if you're searching depression in a psychology database, it'll automatically itself eliminate those terms. So not is not necessarily always used, especially if you're being very specific to a type of database. So that's kind of the plus side of utilizing a specific subject, subject-specific database, as opposed to putting it into a broad interdisciplinary database. If you know you're researching within the psychology database, all of your results that are coming back are going to be psychology related. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, good. But yeah, basically the bottom line is just connect all of your search terms or your keywords with A and D. Okay. Any other questions
Okay.
so far?
All right, just one more.
Yeah, please.
I think like a lot of students, especially here, like on the reservation, we tend to want to research a lot of things that are more tied to our like cultural traditions and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of times when we do get some good insight from like just our elders and stuff like that. And most of the time it's stuff that you can't even like find in the library or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so how would we go about like researching something like a topic in the library for something that's not traditionally like cited or like written about, or just like oral knowledge, you know what I mean?
That's a really good question, and I'm really glad you asked that. And that's actually a big subject area in libraries right now, in terms of how do we access, what is authority, what is considered authority. You know, for Western education, authority is peer review, a well-researched, it has to be written by somebody with a doctorate degree, must be from a reputable journal, so much impact factor. But for a lot of us, Indigenous peoples, a lot of our traditional knowledge comes through our elders, it comes through non-written sources. So in those cases, we have to seriously consider how we represent some of that knowledge. If it's coming directly from someone, say your Che or your Masana, Nalastana Laskin, I would recommend it be something in the form of an interview. Citation format, use an interview format for that, because written text doesn't always capture traditional knowledge. And especially for Navajo traditional knowledge, a lot of it, we never had a writing system prior to a certain time. Everything was oral tradition and oral history. So all of the stuff that got written down in the early days were usually anthropologists' work. And anthropologists, they were looking at it from their Western lenses on something that was traditional for us. So a lot of times we have a different view on that particular thing. If you're citing traditional knowledge, especially something that's coming from your elders, at least what we have done in Indigenous research methods, as we've tried to use interview formats. Also look for traditional knowledge in, a lot of it's captured in video format. Here at the Diné College Libraries, we actually have a lot of oral history done in the form of videos. The Winona State University partnered with Miranda Haskey, and they did oral history DVDs with a lot of cultural knowledge holders in the area. So, you know, getting that information from that particular format too. And a lot of times they, you know, it's not necessarily always here at the college. If you're really looking for traditional knowledge resources, I would recommend reaching out to me. I have a lot of it doesn't always come through in the terms of like, here's a finished product. It's usually a piece within a much larger work. For example, people are always asking about the significance of Sa'anare B'Kehojon, for example. And, you know, most of that knowledge doesn't come from, you know, a written book. A lot of it comes from research coming from within our own people. And those are usually in the form of like dissertations and studies done by people who have worked in Navajo education. So, you know, searching through some of the dissertation works we have, some of that work has already been covered. And a lot of them are available through, you know, recordings. And recordings too are just another area that kind of barely scrapes the surface there. And those are all fully citable too. So if you are interested in the area of exploring traditional knowledges, that is something I would recommend you would book an individual one-on-one appointment for, to kind of get an idea of where to search for those. Because as you can see, we don't necessarily find traditional resources. We find traditional knowledge resources in a database. We find them as the topic of research a lot. But if you want to, you know, research the role of fatherhood, for example, in Navajo culture, then you would have to dig deeper and actually make you might not find that stuff online, because there is a line of what's appropriate to share online, because you have some of those barriers as well. Like, is this appropriate to share online? Is, you know, are certain songs and prayers, it's not always appropriate to share that online or through that medium. So a lot of them, you kind of have to come in and do the archival research on that. And for that, I would recommend doing some sort of one-on-one appointment, depending on what your topic is. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Rhiannon, could I, while we're both here, can I, let's see, just, am I interrupting you if I?
No, not at all.
I'm
Absolutely.
thinking about this really important question too. And so I am the person here on campus who teaches these Western research methods.
Mm-hmm.
And anywhere else I've taught, like at UA and then up in North Dakota, we have one research method class and we teach only Western research methods. Here, you guys have two research classes. You have Indigenous, you are doubly fortunate, in my opinion, because you have the benefits of, I think Dr. Christine Ami is teaching that class now. And I don't know, Rhiannon, it seems like you maybe have some involvement, and you're so fortunate because you're going to get a class. I think I want to take the class so I can learn, but I think it's diving into those types of research methods and the very question, Donovan, that you are posing. And so I feel like you're going to come away with these really rich tools, like with a way of looking at it from this Western lens, which has certain pluses and certain minuses, and a way of looking at it, at some of these questions that you've brought forward of how do we approach research in this very different culture. And so as you were asking your question, I'm thinking, okay, there might be ways we can blend the two. I have some thoughts on that as well, but I think I guess if you're using you're learning Western approaches, we're going to be working with experiments and correlations. And I guess if the focus of our work in this class is on learning these Western tools, then the way that we align it with topics that are relevant to Indigenous people is probably also to find parallel topics in the Western database. And for example, just a brief example, even though there might not be particular Western database with research on particular ceremonies, there would be research on maybe parallels in the Western world, like intensive meditation. I know there's a lot of research on intensive meditation. I know it's not the same, and I don't mean to suggest that it is, but I'm saying it might be the analogous. So since we're looking at a Western method, you might find Western techniques that look at analogous concepts, and then your research might be thinking about how to take that method and apply it to
holistic, I think, yeah, Western and holistic medicine.
taking a parallel concept and then still using a Western approach. So we're true to the offerings of this class, but finding a related concept. And that I might be able to help you with, like if you have a particular topic of interest that you're interested in this traditional Navajo culture, maybe I can help you find search terms that would find a parallel trajectory in the Western database that would help you to design a study kind of for the purposes of this approach that we're teaching in this class. And then you might have a wonderful opportunity in Dr. Ami's class to develop it in a different way.
Right. Donovan, is it on the phone?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would highly, and this class is primarily probably geared a bit toward, Western measures and those types of research methodologies. Have you taken Dr. Ami's class before? The Indigenous research methods? Whatever you do, if you want to do traditional research in parallel with psychology, hang on to those topics and take Dr. Ami's Indigenous research classes. That is going to be an intense course that is actually going to explore what you're talking about, Western research methodology combined with Indigenous research as well, and blending the two. And we're going to be required to research something as something that's different. A lot of times in the sciences, they say as a researcher, you're supposed to be unbiased. You're supposed to be as unbiased as possible. Whereas for us as Indigenous people, our research, when we do research, it is deeply personal to us. A lot of the topics that we draw, if anything in that class, you're actually going to be encouraged to choose your topic based on how it affected you. Okay, so whatever traditional aspect of your life as a Diné person, you're going to be asked to choose your topic based on how it has an impact on you, and you're going to approach that research from that point of view, juxtaposed with the Western way of doing that. So hang on to those research topics and take Dr. Ami's class. She will really help you take whatever topics you have in mind and run with it.
In fact, I believe that the Indigenous methods class is also required for our students. And so they'll be getting both. So they'll be getting that personal perspective that you've just described and that objective perspective in this class. And so it kind of gives two very good tools for people who, really, there are two worlds here and a tool for understanding both of them. And this, so that'll be that more personal approach in that class, and this will be that more Western approach. And I just want to add one more thing. Dr. Ami just added, I think, a second level, like an advanced Indigenous methods class. And so I believe that just like in this class, we develop a proposal, but we don't do the research. There's an advanced version of this class where you would actually do the research.
There is actually.
In her class, there is a introductory level that I think all of our students are required to take for Indigenous methods. And then there's an optional advanced class where you could apply an Indigenous method in actual.
Yep, absolutely. So
We get
you
a
guys,
double rich trajectory here. It's
yeah,
so,
so you know, you guys, if you don't get the chance to explore a lot of the traditional topics in this class in indigenous research methodologies, hang on to those, because you are going to really get to get hands-on interaction with those topics, to the point where it's probably going to frustrate you. It's going to get emotional for you, because these are topics that are really close to you as to individuals. And with that, the course also has you, if you take the advanced portion, you're actually going to go out and do data collection related to your topic. So if anything, use this as an opportunity to explore, you know, see what the Western method is like, but hang on to a lot of those topics, you know, because down the road, they're going to be useful for you in that advanced indigenous research methodologies class.
Thank you.
Okay. That was good. That was a really good question. That's really important to us here at the libraries, as well as we start to move in, you know, not just in terms of books, you know, we're not just a storage house of books. We actually want to encourage people to kind of think about these resources from, you know, the net perspective. Okay. All right. Any questions about Medline? As I was stating previously, again, make use of those citation tools as they show up here in Medline. If you find articles that you're not finding access to, especially through the DOI numbers, always make that keep track of those DOI numbers. Those are the easiest way to track down papers on our end, as opposed to, you know, just sending us links. Please don't send us links. Some people like to highlight this here and copy and paste and send it to us and be like, I need this paper. Don't send links. Likewise, when you're doing your references page, you're not going to just paste a bunch of links in there. Make sure they're formatted and include all of the necessary information required of you by your instructor. Same with when you're working within not just this college environment, but a bigger university environment. You got to get used to using the full citation format of the articles. Okay. I want to jump back again to our databases page. And we looked at the psychology stuff, but you know, on the topic of Native American studies, the NEST studies, I do recommend you look at some of the databases here. If you're doing some research in traditional areas, again, this would be an indigenous, just offhand, indigenous research methods. These would be relevant, especially stuff like Anthrosource and Ethnic Newswatch. Ethnic Newswatch is primarily a newspaper database, but it does have some dissertations. Ethnic Newswatch has a particular focus on minorities, so American Indian, Jewish, African American, Latinx, whatever in those categories would be located within Ethnic Newswatch. I have the Navajo Times Index there, as well as the American Indian Quarterly, Indian Country Today, and all of those Native press titles. And since this is a kind of more geared halfway between health, not mental health, and psychology, which is often tied a lot to physical health, we have this Native Health database available from the University of New Mexico. So here, this site is open source to search. Again, it's like an indexing site. So here, I'm just gonna use my old search term here, post-traumatic stress disorder. What kind of results we're gonna get. All right, so we got 22. You can see the list of results. Since this is Native Health, a lot of the results are going to be, again, from American Indian journals like American Indian Mental Health Research, IHS publications, annual Indian Health Service research conferences, all of that sort of thing there. You can see some of these are listed just like by the numbers, and then some of them have this little PDF icon next to them The PDF icon means that they are open source. You can click on them, and if you look in the record, you can scroll down. You should see an area for downloading in the top right-hand corner. It says view this article, and you can download it as a PDF. If you need a record in here, some of these don't have the little PDF icon on them. Those that don't have the PDF icon on them, make a note again of their accession number, their title, get that information and send an email. Down at the bottom, you can see the email address to the Health Sciences Native Health Database email address. Send them an email from your Diné College email. That we have an agreement with them that they will help send articles to our students, just as long as they can prove that they're students. So make sure if you're sending any kind of article request to them, that you're sending from your DC email. And feel free to CC us, feel free to CC me as well. And just so, you know, it's always good to just CC that information. Just real quick, again, I said I would do this. I'm putting my email in the chat box. So it's rsorrell@dinetcollege.edu. And any help that you might need, especially for requesting articles, we're at library.dinetcollege.edu. So I'm putting that there as well. Of course, my email is going to me, and the library email is going to several of us here in the library. So just for your references. Okay. Any questions about Native Health Database? Okay. All right. So one other thing I wanted to bring your attention to, back to the homepage. So we've talked a lot about some of these topics in depth. You know, doing advanced research, you know, that can be in and of itself kind of a can be tricky, because we really are starting to look really in depth at a lot of these topics. So if you're having trouble, we have under this box that says ask us, we have a link that says meet with a librarian. If you want to work one-on-one with me or any of our people here, you can send us an email and include the following information: your name, email, your status, you know, here would be Diné College student, date and time availability for your appointment, including your first, second, and third choice, and what you would like to discuss. We can meet in person, but in this meeting email link, we can also create a Zoom meeting. So we can do a one-on-one Zoom meeting regarding your library research as well. So if you need additional help in terms of, you know, navigating these databases, you know, refining your topic, refining your key terms, then we can do that. And if you need any kind of, you know, research consultation, that's where you can make use of that resource there. Did I cover everything?
I
Suzanne?
think you have just
Yeah,
covered
it does.
really
It's
helpful.
not,
Go
it's
ahead.
not only help.
I'm sorry.
It's like not it's like not only helpful for this class specifically, but my other classes too. So thank you for all the information.
Absolutely, Donovan. Thank you for all of your questions. Those are really good, insightful questions. And, you know, this, like I said, make use of these new tools. We're really proud that we finally have these resources available, the new website, the new search engine, the new databases formats. Test your key terms out, see what kind of key terms you get back. That way you can kind of, based on what you find or what you don't find, you can refine your topic and focus your topic based on that.
Anybody else besides Donovan have anything to ask or add before we sign off? Or not sign off for the class, but thank Rhiannon and sign off. Katana, Nicole.
I don't have any questions. I think it was very informational. I think once we start to use it, we'll get comfortable with it. I haven't used it before, so I'm pretty sure I'll have questions once I get in there to start using it. But until then, I think she covered a good portion of it.
Okay. Not hearing any other voices, I think we have another just about 10 minutes, which will be a good time for us to finalize what you need to do this week. So thank you so much. This was just a wonderful, beneficial presentation and a beautiful job on the library. It looks really navigable and terrific. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. You guys, good luck. You know, again, I'm just an email away. You know, feel free to get hold of me if you need any additional help. So talk to you later. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Goodbye. Oh my gosh, what a terrific talk. So I hope you find that helpful. I'll go over what we're going to be doing, what you're going to be doing this week. So let me put my screen on share again. Okay, I am pulling over some guidelines for you. So you're going to be finding just 3 resources this week. You need 6 for your paper, but really you can't even find those. You can get more if you want to, but 3 is what you're required to get for this week. And for this week, I'd like you to find one that's an experiment, one that's a correlation, and one that's just related to your topic. But this is going to have its challenges. So because you're probably not quite sure of your search terms. So I'm going to show you this helpful document that I made. And then I want to also tell you, though, that some of your best resources for search terms in psychology is to talk to people who know the search terms, like your professors in psychology. So don't forget about us. If you're not sure of what your search term is, we may have some really good suggestions for you. This isn't fitting on the screen, so let me just shrink it a little bit. Okay, so I've put together this tip, and right here on the second number is to find the right search terms. And we had started just before Rhiannon came in talking with Talea, and she was interested in this feeling of entitlement. And she's not sure yet of the behavioral outcomes that are interesting her. So she's going to start there, hopefully find 3 papers related to entitlement. One should be an experiment, one should be a correlation or regression, and the last one is just any paper. But we do have a few limitations. Let me just go down here, I guess. They have to be peer-reviewed articles, and as she pointed out to you, this would be articles that in your database are filtered through the phrase, I think, academic research articles. The reason we look for peer review is because that is a process by which people who are knowledgeable in that field review the research that's being done and check if the methods were good, check if the research has integrity. And if those experts agree that the research has integrity, then it gets published. And that's why we in the Western tradition look for peer review, because we're always trying to stand back and be objective. Such a good way to distinguish that. So here you're learning your objective approach. You want to try and find articles that are within the last decade. So you'd be looking at, 2011 and onward. I personally don't think old articles are necessarily irrelevant. I think it's actually really helpful to understand the foundation of the research that's newer. So I don't feel as strongly as some of your other professors might that it has to be totally recent, but you should definitely have the majority of your articles should be recent. And I'll say the last 10 years. For our purposes in this class, you want articles and not books. You want research articles, peer-reviewed research articles, because the books are compilations of research. You can learn a lot about a topic by reading the book. But here we're trying to we're building on a studies. And so we want to have studies at the foundation, not compilations of other people's work. So we want to go back to the actual studies. So for this, we're not going to use books. Things to avoid for this class. Don't use what's called meta-analysis. Those are incredibly valuable papers where a researcher looks at all the results of earlier studies and then does a statistical analysis to determine what conclusions can be drawn. It's really important, but we're working with the small pieces in this class. We're just working with individual studies. So for our class, I want you to just stay with individual studies, not meta-analyses. Similarly, you might find a peer-reviewed paper that's a theoretical paper. Stay away from that too. Find articles that are describing a study where they're going to have like participants and a method and something that they did, and it's going to be an experiment or not an experiment. So we don't want to do theoretical papers. And sometimes you'll find a paper that's a literature review. And that's another thing that we want to avoid. So literature reviews are also good. Like if there's a brand new topic that we don't know anything about, maybe the very first step is someone says, I'm just going to find out what's out there. And that's really valuable. But for this class, that's not what we're doing. In another class, that might be a really rich source, but in this class, we're just looking for individual studies. So being peer-reviewed alone isn't quite enough for this class. We have to find actual studies. And you'll be able to see that in the abstract. You're going to be finding 3 articles this week. One of them is going to be a correlational design and some search terms. So first off, you're going to work on narrowing your topic, and this might be hard for you. I thought we might have a little more time to go over your individual ideas, but we don't. So you're going to have to find your own topic. So find your variable and then think of synonyms for it. So you think of different words that have a similar meaning and search those. You could ask one of your professors, because very often in the discipline, there are terms for this that we would know that you might not yet know. And you could read an article that seems close and see what terms they're using. If you narrow your search, let's say you're getting too many results and you just want to focus in more, you could narrow it by the population. Maybe you're interested particularly in this phenomenon in Navajo or Native American or American Indian or indigenous people. Then add that search term with the and. You could narrow it by discipline. I often, if I'm using a database like that first one she showed us, I often just add the term psychology or education or whatever it is that I'm looking for. And that will narrow it to that stuff. Narrow by construct, like a particular theory. If you've heard about a theory in your class, you could do that. Attribution theory, terror management theory. And narrow by researcher. Like if you like the study I just showed you by Kleinsmith, you could look at and see what else is Kleinsmith doing. If you're too narrow, you might need to broaden it. You probably know that. And then the last comments, I want to say, secondly, she said, if you find you're in Psycinfo and you find a title that looks good and you read the abstract and it also looks good and you cannot find the article, and she said you can send it to her. And you can absolutely do that. I might be able to turn it around more quickly for you because I'm a designated campus colleague at University of Arizona. So I feel like anything I look for is at that library. So I might even be able to get it more quickly, possibly. Or anyhow, I'm another option to get an article that looks good, but you can't find it. I gave you some terms here that you can add: correlation, regression, multiple regression. Any of these might help you narrow it down to get your correlational study. And for experiment, you can add the word experiment as a search term. You might come across, say, t-test, which could very well be an experiment. So you could just be aware of that. That's just a comparison of 2 groups. You might come across this ANOVA, analysis of variance. That's just a comparison, like if your independent variable, instead of having just 2 conditions, it had more than 2 conditions, that would be an ANOVA. And that might be a search term that you have, and now you know what that means. And then your third study is just one that's relevant. And then you're going to just submit the studies to me. There are assignment boxes on our webpage. And then this is be on our webpage for next week, first chapter in Unit C. That's what this is. This document will be on your webpage, and you're going to submit each of your 3 articles, and then you're going to submit a summary of each of those articles. And I told you just what to include in the summary. And I wanted to point out to you, you need to give your best attempt to reading the article, and you're going to find it difficult and tedious. Just believe me on that. But I want you to give it a try. And what you do in your summary is going to be fine as long as I can see that you've read that article. You're going to be great. And then I do ask you to go to the very end of the article, the last few paragraphs, and see what future research they suggest that might give you some ideas. That's our assignment for the week. Are there any questions?
No questions for me.
Thanks, Nicole. All right, I'll see you guys next week then. I think we're done. 2:41. So have a good one, everyone, and thanks for being here, and as always for participating, especially those of you who are active in here. Thank you. And those of you who are tuning in actively without talking, thank you also. And I'll see you next week, and do get in touch if you have any questions.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Jeanette, any questions? I know that you had submitted an assignment that wasn't open.